My name is Anna. I've lived in Louisville for 42 years. Welcome to Derby Week. And if you happen to be out this way earlier today, welcome to the boat race. What's everyone's name? Where are you from? And why are you here?
Dylan, and I'm filming a travel vlog called Fearless Travelers.
And where are you from?
Chicago area.
Chicago, awesome. And who are you all?
I'm Sherry Louisville, and I travel for work, so I'm here with my daughter.
And where are you all from?
West Virginia.
West Virginia, awesome. Well, fantastic. So this is the Whispers on Whiskey Road Tour. It's called the Dark History of the Derby City because, as you know, every city has its history. They have their good, they have their, candy-coated, sugar-coated stuff. But, they don't always tell the story of the dark side, the stuff that's in the dusty corners. So tonight I'm going to dust off those dusty corners, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that dark side. Now, as far as I know, almost everything here is verifiable fact. Now, we are going to encounter stories of a few otherworldly spirits, and that's up to you to decide if that's verifiable fact or not. But the historical stuff, absolutely well-researched fact. So we're going to start over here with this fella right here. This is, according to the plaque, it's General George Rogers Clark. But when he founded the city of Louisville in 1778, he was Lieutenant Colonel George Rogers Clark. He needed a place to hold off the British from the north and the south, so he stopped in an area right there where he's pointing, in the middle of the Ohio River, called Corn Island. Can y'all see Corn Island where he's pointing? That's because it's under the water. But it's been under the water for a long time, but it is still out there. Now, he needed a place to hold off the British from the north, so he settled the northern area, named it after himself. He named it Clarksville, and he settled the southern area, named it after King Louis XVI of France, named it Louisville. There you have it, the beginning of our city. But there's more to his story than that. So George Rogers Clark was actually known as the conqueror of the West. He was known as a fellow who hated the indigenous. In fact, he was once quoted as saying the greatest show of strength that a country can do was to eliminate its indigenous problem through extreme prejudice. This right here is a very early map of the Louisville area. This map was actually drawn out by the Shawnee. We had the Shawnee, the Miami, the Chickasaw, the Cherokee, and the Iroquois in this area, the Shawnee being the largest. So when George Rogers Clark came to this area, he's fighting the British, he encountered many indigenous. He knew that the indigenous could go a few ways. They could either support the British cause, or they were against the British and supported the cause of us, or they really were neutral either way. So whenever he and his men encountered indigenous, they gave them several choices they could take. One, you can take up arms and join us against the British. Two, you can help us out by giving us supplies, mapping out our area, and giving us moral support. Or three, you can choose neither of those, and we'll go ahead, burn down your crops, ruin your sacred relics, and spill your blood all over this land. So it's kind of a tough choice there either way, right? Now, all of this culminated on an early winter morning in, I almost said Forsyth, Vincennes, Indiana, which is with that direction. You can't really see it from here, but it's that way. There was a British military fort that was up there, and that fort was kind of surrounded by a village, and a large number of the people that lived in that village were Shawnee, indigenous Shawnee. And so one dark, cold winter night, George Rogers Clark and his military kind of snuck through that village, and they
Do you know the regiments that were part of it?
What?
Do you know the actual units that were part of his there, the Illinois Regiment?
I'm actually not certain, but I will find out for you before the end of it.
I can tell you, because I'm a part of that group.
Tell me.
So you had Bourbon's company, which was captained by Joseph Bourbon. You had, it was all part of the Illinois Regiment, which actually died only some there.
Yeah.
You had Bowman's, you had Hamilton, or I'm sorry, not Hamilton, you had Worthington's company, which was all part of the Illinois or Virginia territory.
Uh-huh.
And you also had Keller's company, which is based out of Louisville area.
Wow. Okay, and these were part of so Kellerman Company?
Keller Company, Bowman Company.
Keller and Bowman Company snuck through this village, and they were going to kind of surround this British fort.
You could honestly just say the Illinois Regiment. That's what his regiment is.
The Illinois Regiment, all right. He and the Illinois Regiment, they snuck in this village to surround this fort, and they ended up taking several hostages while they were doing that. They actually took 5 hostages. 4 men, 1 woman, all Shawnee. Early the next morning, right at daybreak, they brought those hostages up to the edge of the fort, all tied together at the waist, and George Rogers Clark called out through the freezing cold winter air, "Do you surrender?" He didn't get a response, so he pulled out a blade and he cut the first guy's throat. And then he called out again, "I said, do you surrender?" No answer. Cuts the next guy's throat. He goes down the line like that, cutting everyone's throat, saving the woman at last. He finally calls out, "This is your last chance. Do you surrender?" No answer. So he actually guts her, slices her belly, and she dies slowly, screaming in agony in the cold winter air. So after that, that really didn't lead to an immediate British surrender, but the British eventually did surrender and won the revolution. And now, as you can see, he is the strapping founder of our city. Make no mistake, though, as glorified as he is, his story is written in fire and blood. And now we're going to move over that direction. Jimmy Grace today. That's all right. Great. So did you all know that in the United States today there are only 5 fully running original, fully steam-powered steamboats left in operation? The oldest of those was built in 1914, and it was called the Idlewild. It eventually changed to the Belle of Louisville. So we have the oldest fully steam-powered, still functioning steamboat in the United States. So the Belle of Louisville has had some interesting folks hanging on there for a while. A long time ago in the dial, there was a man named Floyd who worked on the boat. He was a deckhand and a maintenance guy and a mechanic. And one day, Floyd decided that he was going to be fixing that paddle wheel. You see that red wheel? And he was tightening some nuts and bolts inside. And he had his arm snaked all the way up to the shoulder, all the way through those paddles. He was tightening those nuts and bolts, right? Back in the day when they used to take off from where they were docked, they kind of had a chain of command. The navigator would call out to steam room, paddle wheel. The wheels suddenly started turning, and the boat started coming off of the dock. And Floyd's arm was ripped off right at the shoulder, and he died bleeding and shock and blood loss right there on that deck where you see. And as we walk this direction, I'll tell you a little bit more about the Idlewild Cat. He was a bit of a gambling man, and he was a partner. He liked his gambling, he liked his cigars, and he liked them. And oftentimes he liked all those things at the same time. Well, while he was the captain of the Belle of Louisville, this was during the time of National Louisville, the Idlewild. When he was on the Idlewild, this was during the time when gambling was not necessarily legal in this area. And one night, Captain Boone was hanging out with Captain's quarters, and he was seeing some friends. He was entertaining some ladies at Marketplace, and doing some illegal gambling, smoking some cigars. Yes. But someone ratted him out to the authorities. And, he didn't have his wife with him, so that was kind of bad, too. And so the authorities are starting to raid the boat, and they're getting all that illegal stuff off. They're bringing all those illegal gambling machines off. And Captain Winters was about to have a panic attack. He's like, "Oh my gosh, my reputation's ruined. My wife's going to find out. The whole city's going to find out. I can't let anyone know I've been doing this illegal stuff. My life is over." And as he is watching the authorities drag that last gambling machine off the boat right in front of him, he ends up having that panic attack and dies of a heart attack. Drops dead right there on the captain's quarters floor. Now, interesting story about Captain Winters and Mr. Floyd there. It's been said that about a week prior to Floyd's death, he and Captain Winters had gotten into a bit of a fight or an argument. And then no one really knows why the boat ended up taking off on the day that Captain Winters ordered Floyd to look his head inside that paddle wheel and see what he could find that was broken. Just saying. Maybe it was not his arm that was supposed to be ripped off. But Captain Winters apparently got his comeuppance from that anyway. Now, These days, there have been passengers on the Belle of Louisville after it. It has a tradition where once they are done with their tour, their cruise for the night, as the passengers are leaving the boat and they're coming back onto the land, and the crew members will be waving at them from the windows of the boat. Many passengers have reported seeing an extra crew member in that window they don't remember seeing before. A guy in turn of the century clothes, waving with his one remaining arm. They don't know where the other one is. They didn't see that guy before. Many, many crew members, even to this day, have reported feeling a presence near the captain's quarters of the Belle of Louisville. They'll often smell cigar smoke. They can't really explain where that's coming from. One crew member actually was taking the captain's position that day. He was sitting in the captain's desk, in the captain's quarters, looking at the desk, doing some paperwork, felt eyes staring at him, happened to look up, and he swears to this day he saw Captain Winter staring at him sternly, making sure that he was running a tight ship. Before the guy even had a chance to freak out, Captain Winters had disappeared as quickly as he appeared. Now, the Belle of Louisville has started its cruise season, and they often like to do midnight cruises. So if anyone's feeling brave enough, you're still around, and you want to take one of those midnight Belle of Louisville cruises, maybe you can see if there are any crew members on the end of it when you get off. Now, this rapping fellow here, this fellow's name is York. He has no surname, and that is because York was a slave. In fact, he was owned by the Clark family, in particular William Clark, George Rogers Clark's younger brother. William Clark famously teamed up with his friend Meriwether Lewis to complete their expedition and end it right here in Louisville. Now, York, history sometimes has told us that York he was owned by the Clark family. They took him along. He was dead weight. He was an extra mouth to feed. He was kind of useless. There was no reason for him to be there. But once we've looked really into York's history, we know that he was actually a very adept traveler. In fact, he is a big reason why they were able to survive it and come on back in one piece. He and another explorer who was also enslaved, you may remember her, her name was Sacagawea. So York, the Clark family told York, if you get us through this expedition and we get all back here in one piece, once you're here safely, we will give you your freedom. This was a big deal to York because he had a lovely young wife here in Louisville. York wanted to get his freedom and live happily with his wife here in Louisville. When the Clark family returned from their expedition, they went back on their promise. They did not give him his freedom. And then the Clark family moved one direction. York went with them. His wife's family moved another direction. She had to go with them. He never saw his wife again. It took 10 more years before he was able to grant his freedom. I think his statue should be bigger than his, but no one consulted me before they planned the city. What can you say? All right, let's get off this waterfront.
Hey there, my travelers. We're just finishing up on this great ghost tour of the Whisper Tour here, offered by Louisville Food Tours. This was a great tour. This is just part of my long, about hour to 2 hour tour that I had here, and just wanted to highlight some of the evening I had with such a great time. Met a lot of great folks. We saw some really cool and interesting things, and it is definitely a must go see when in Kentucky and downtown Louisville. So catch you guys next time, and I'll see you out there.